Hi, I'm Charlie, and this is Stereo Hysteria. Our November artists of the month, the Connells, are a rock band formed in the mid-'80s in Raleigh, North Carolina, whose core lineup features brothers Mike and David Connell on guitar and bass, respectively, and Doug McMillan on lead vocals. Their music combines a strong sense of melodic pop songcraft with an introspective and melancholy lyrical sensibility that gained them a devoted following in the late 80s and early 90s on American college radio. In the mid-90s, their song 7475 unexpectedly became a big hit in Europe, and the band found themselves playing in stadiums and rubbing shoulders with music legends. But unfortunately, the momentum didn't last, and the band was dropped by its longtime label TVT Records at the end of the decade. But they never stopped playing together, and this September, they released Stedman's Wake, a stellar album that marks their first new release in 20 years. Stereo Hysteria recently spoke with founding member and primary songwriter Mike Connell over Zoom, and we'll be hearing our conversation along with highlights from the band's catalog and a few rarities over the next hour. And we are currently hearing Dial It, an instrumental from the band's 1985 debut album Darker Days, as recently remastered for its first appearance on digital platforms. But without further ado, here's my conversation with Mike Connell. I usually like to start off these interviews just kind of going back to the very beginning of your musical development and just asking if you grew up in a particularly musical family. I mean, obviously your brother has been the bassist in the band for all this time, so I would imagine that your musical development would have happened in concert with one another, you know?
That was not the case. In like second or third grade, I just knew that I wanted to try to learn to play the guitar. David only started playing the bass guitar when he was in college. Okay. So I was a little ahead of him in that respect. And so the music that was played in our house would have been, classical music, or I guess my parents would play Camelot every now and again, or some Broadway musical, but there was no pop music to speak of. Mm-hmm. But that changed early on in, second grade, certainly about the second grade, was attuned to what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Just listening to the radio?
It wasn't the radio at that point. It was, like Ed Sullivan on Sunday night. Friends whose older brothers had albums.
Okay.
So it was the Beatles and the Stones and the Monkees, the Kinks, Lovin' Spoonful. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just completely fascinated. And even at a pretty early age, my parents attempted to get me to take guitar lessons. And for instance, one guitar teacher was a young woman in high school who the lesson was, I would sit there and she would play Bob Dylan songs for half an hour, and then she would get paid for teaching me guitar, even though I just sat there listening to her play Blowing in the Wind, which was awesome. Yeah, so I was all consumed at a very early age. My thinking was that whatever these folks are doing, I want part of that. So my father had come home with a classical guitar and lost interest very quickly. So we were sitting in the corner. So I got up the nerve one day to ask if it would be okay for me to pick up his guitar and, whatever came of it. And he was more than happy. He'd lost interest, so he was perfectly okay with that. So, and that would have been, second or third grade, something like that.
Do you remember the first time that you tried to write your own song?
It was pretty early on. I don't quite know. I mean, this was mid-'60s. Going into, 66, 67. So hearing a lot of amazing and really heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I was taking some really feeble stabs at doing some of that. But yeah, I was writing some pretty strange stuff. My parents went on a trip to California, and the couple that stayed with us, the husband was a psychiatrist. And when my parents got back, I think that as delicately as he could say was that you have some interesting children. And I think by the fifth grade, I had a song that said something about you're in the prisons of life's decisions, which I guess for a fifth grader is not standard stuff. I wrote a song that started, I was born about a mile from Tennessee. My parents died when I was only 3. The rest of my days were sad and unhappy till one afternoon I met a man named Pappy. So that song was called Pappy, and it was it didn't have a good ending. So, I mean, that was probably the influence of Puff the Magic Dragon, But,
like a story song.
Anyway, yeah, at an early age, I was making my first attempts at coming up with something on my own.
And this is in Macon, Georgia, right?
I was born in Georgia. My father, when he finished with the Army in Georgia, he moved us up to North Carolina, where my mom was from. And so we lived with my grandparents. And he did his residency at Duke. So lived some in Raleigh and some in Durham, North Carolina.
Okay.
And then when he finished his residency, he moved us back to Macon.
Okay.
And so lived there from 6th grade through my second year of college. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sort of curious because I have kind of a Allman Brothers influenced version of what the sound of that area is like. But I think you've always kind of taken, a lot of inspiration from living in the south of the U.S., but it's not like a Southern rock take on it.
No, we were never good enough to play, Southern rock the way it's meant to be played. So it was Southern pop, I guess, through a serious British filter. I mean, and, growing up, although I appreciated what these guys living a few miles away were doing, and all my buddies were listening to that, I sort of maintained this interest. What I was primarily inclined to listen to what was coming from Britain. Mm-hmm. And now, of course, I have a greater appreciation of how astounding, amazing, the Allman Brothers and bands of their ilk are.
Yeah.
So, but no, we could never pull off that. We just couldn't. So much of that is heavily blues influenced.
Right.
And that's just not in our music at all. It's out of the British folk tradition with a lot of minor chords. And so a big influence was early, before they got really pretentious, was early Jethro Tull, late 60s I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Up through Benefit was an album that came out, I think, in 72 or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great album.
And I'll still love some of that early Jethro Tull stuff. But
yeah, you guys do a real good version of Living in the Past.
Well, we do a pretty feeble version of that. But yeah, that is a nod to some of those influences for sure.
What was behind the Connells starting off as a band? Was it just you and your brother at first? When did everyone join in? David,
who again had just started playing bass guitar, would meet once a week with a friend, John Schultz, who was a drummer. That we were all in Chapel Hill in school at the time. I guess after a while they found that to be a little less than fully stimulating, just to have a rhythm section, playing. So David suggested to this guy, John, that he had an older brother who was writing songs and played guitar. And so I was invited, and the three of us then played for a while. And John was boyhood friends with Doug, who was at a school 80 miles east of where we were going to school. And he brought Doug in one day, and that's when we first met. And then we invited him for what we hoped we would maybe one day play in a bar if we were lucky, that sort of thing, not at all thinking that it would lead to something more than that. We were playing songs that I was writing at the time. This was when I was in law school. So I realized that if I was ever going to, play in a band, that it would need to happen sooner than later. It just would never happen.
Yeah.
So I felt some impulse and was getting a little more assiduous about sitting down and trying to write tunes. So that's kind of how the four of us came together. John, a great friend and the one who had kind of started the whole thing, maybe wasn't as steady on the drums. The tempos would vary, which is, really not ideal. So we ultimately invited Peel Wimberly, who'd been playing with bands in and around Raleigh. And once Peel was sitting there on the Skins, things solidified pretty quickly to the point that we felt okay playing at a party or trying to play in a bar. So by September of 1984, Peel and Doug and David and I played out for the first time at a bar here in Raleigh, which had been a private party, had rented the bar out. So it wasn't as though, it was open to the public.
Right.
But yeah, that was our first horrifying experience playing live. But the 4 or 5 or 6 songs that we had worked up to that point, I guess we played them all that night. And George Huntley, who was a childhood friend, we asked him to join the band in December of 84. So it was then the 5 of us. Things progressed relatively quickly from that point. We were invited to play more, and we were coming up with more songs and getting to open for bands in real bars, in an opening slot. And, people were showing some interest and crowds were getting bigger. such that, by the end of my third year of law school, which would have been the spring of 1985, my thinking was just see what could happen with the band and put off practicing law for a while. And then it would run its course quickly, and then it would be easy enough to finally get into practicing law. And of course, it turned out to last a little longer than I anticipated.
From their 1985 debut album, Darker Days, here's a track that prominently features the jangly Rickenbacker guitars that typified their early sound, called Seven.
My brother told me what had happened on that day. Although I knew the feeling did not hit me right away, then I fell asleep into a dream and thought that it was real, and I knew that it was alright. I knew that he was alright. Fell asleep into a dream and thought that it was real, and I knew that it was alright. I knew that he was alright, and I'd tell you that I would see him again. My brother told me what had happened on that day. Although I knew the feeling did not hit me right away. The time was wrong, the feeling strong. Will I see you today? And I thought of what we said, and I feel it too. Will I see you today? And I thought I heard you speaking as I fell into a dream, and I knew that it was alright. I knew that he was alright. Thought I heard you speaking as I fell into a dream. I knew that it was alright. I knew that he was alright. Then I'll tell you that I would see him again.
Yeah, right from the beginning, you did have this very distinctive sound that was, a lot of jangly, arpeggiated guitars, which, a lot of people said reminded them of R.E.M. But there were a lot of bands at that time doing a similar thing, Let's Active and Guadalcanal Diary. And
oh, yeah. We played with all of the bands you just mentioned and idolized all the bands you just mentioned. I mean, so it wasn't coincidental that there was that element. I guess Doug at that point was still trying to figure out his voice. Certainly on that first record, he's singing in a lower register with maybe something that owes more to the Smiths and Echo and the Bunnymen and Joy Division.
Yeah, like stentorian baritone voice.
Yeah. Perfect characterization. Yeah, yeah.
And it sounds like by Boyland Heights, he sort of settled into like sort of the higher register.
Exactly. Yeah. You listen to what you've done, and I don't know how we felt about Darker Days when we were making it, but once it was made, we sort of looked at one another like, really, we could have slowed the tempos down on a few of these numbers a little bit. Yeah, it struck me certainly that Doug was singing in sort of an affected manner, and so I had started to hear what I perceived to be more of his natural voice and encouraged him along those lines. I was trying to write the melodies for songs, that required him to sing in a higher register.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the way that played out. And he had, like you say, by Boylan Heights, had started to understand what his natural voice was. There's not a whole lot natural about Doug, but that was... Anyway, that was gratuitous. Sorry.
I'm sure if he was here, he'd be laughing.
Oh, he would. Yeah, he would.
So how did you get involved with TVT Records, who put out pretty much all of your records up until Still Life?
In early part of the summer of 1987, we went up to D.C. to the 930 Club to open for a band from Britain called the Wooden Tops.
Okay.
And Steve Gottlieb had come down from New York. He had recently released television's greatest hits. He'd gone to Harvard Law School and knew enough to be dangerous, and so had acquired the rights to all these television theme songs. I think people before had contemplated doing what he did, but it was too much energy to go about acquiring the rights to all these, but he did that. And so put out television's greatest hits, which sold amazingly. And he was able to create his own label. TVT is TV Tunes. When he came down to New York, it was Steve and one assistant. After the show, Boylan Heights was already in the can. We had recorded it, and it was pretty much done. And he offered us $20,000 for that record, and the contract was that we would sign on for another 7 or 8, that he would have the right of first refusal.
Okay.
And we understood that it was not a great deal, but the thinking was it didn't matter because there was no chance that we would try to make another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 records. Someone was offering us $20,000 for a record that we'd already made, and we were like, sign us up. And Steve is a charismatic guy and persuasive. And so, he had licensed a band from Australia for release, The Saints.
Yeah.
We were the first band signed to TVT Records. And so, sure enough, I guess in the fall of '87, Boylan Heights came out on TVT Records.
And here's a track released as a single from that sophomore Connells record, 1987's Boylan Heights, called Scotty's Lament.
So sublime, I fought the windmill. So sublime, I saw angels. I know my place in this. So sublime, I had visions. So sublime, you were in them. I found my place in this world. It's you, I swear. It's you, I swear. I delight in my despair. You, I swear. It's you, I swear. Giving me the right. It's you who lied. You who lied when you had to swallow pride. It's you, I swear. It's you, I swear. So surprised. Thoughts escaped me. So surprised. Words escaped me. I know my place in this. So surprised. I had visions. So surprised. You were in them. I found my place in this world. It's you, I swear. It's you, I swear. I delight in my despair. You, I swear, it's you, I swear, giving me the right. It's you who lied, when you had to swallow pride. It's you, I swear, it's you, I swear. It's you, I swear, I delight in my despair. You, I swear, it's you, I swear, giving me the right. It's you who lied when you had to swallow pride. It's you, I swear, it's you, I swear. It's you, I swear, it's you, I swear, I delight in my despair. It's you, I swear, it's you, I swear, giving me the right. It's you lied when you had to swallow pride. It's you, I swear, it's you, I swear.
And you guys are touring pretty consistently, pretty heavily throughout this period, right?
Yeah, by that point, we were going full bore. We were playing whenever possible. We were getting outside of the South. I mean, I think we had even made our way to the West Coast by some point in '87, up into the Northeast and New England, Mid-Atlantic, Midwest. So yeah, we had hit a lot of the country early on. I mean, granted, this was sleeping in the van, the 6 of us a lot of nights, the 5 of us playing, and our first manager, Tom Carter, who was also our tour manager. So yeah, it was traveling under sort of less than ideal circumstances, but it was a grind, but just the novelty of it. And, the fact that people were showing some interest, even outside of the South, in what we were doing was pretty stimulating. So
yeah, if you're going to tour hard, then do it in your 20s when your body can recuperate.
Even then, wow, we would go into these tours and it was with a real sense of dread that it's, you're uprooted, you've just disconnected and homesick and no privacy. Your time's not your own. Yeah, it was a grind. So even in my 20s, I saw that it wasn't all what I had imagined that it would be.
Yeah, hard work for sure.
Yeah, it felt that way. 40 days into a 45-day trip, when you haven't slept well or you haven't eaten well, or you've probably been doing things you shouldn't have been doing for those, 40 days anyway.
It's a dehydrating lifestyle.
It is indeed. Are you?
I have done some touring, yeah.
Yeah,
I've slept next to litter boxes and
yes.
The whole punk rock route.
Oh, awesome. And curled up on pieces of furniture that aren't meant to be slept upon. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Yeah. But it makes the members of the band that much tighter. And I think that in Fun and Games, that album, you can really tell that you're firing on all cylinders, and each member of the band is bringing a lot of themselves to the arrangements.
Yeah, I think that is a fair assessment. We left Raleigh to go up to Boston to make that record. And I remember that morning, it was in the summer, I guess, of '88. I think we had a sense that we needed to sort of focus to the extent that we could and take it seriously and try to do the best that we could. Because we did like, a fair number of the songs on the record, but, there were always reservations and self-doubt. But yeah, we went into making that record with a sense of purpose. And so, yeah, hopefully some of that played out.
And that was at a Fort Apache, right?
Yeah, with Gary Smith.
Okay.
We'd met, he was in a band called Lifeboat. They were great. And he produced some early Pixies stuff and worked with some other bands. So yeah, it was an amazing studio in the Boston music scene and Cambridge. Yeah, it was really very cool. We befriended a lot of bands out of that area.
Yeah. I want to say like Dinosaur Jr. was recording there around the same time.
Yeah. We'd never interacted, but yeah, obviously it was a pretty hip scene there in Boston in the late 80s.
Here's a highlight from 1989's Fun and Games called Hey Wow.
Is the sun out? Has the wind died? Or is the stillness here? The calm between my ears, and I know now why they put me here. Things were clear once, till the clouds came. Now I don't know when they'll fall. No, I couldn't say at all. And I know now why they
For most of the albums up to this point, you'd been the main songwriter, but the rest of the band, George started writing a couple songs per album. Doug started writing songs. Peel contributed a couple. Were you consciously trying to make the band's songwriting more democratic?
I've never been asked that question before. It was a tremendous relief when one of those guys would come in with a song that I liked, because it was nice not to have to shoulder responsibility for coming up with all of the new tunes, which I found to be hard work trying to write songs. So yeah, George would come in with some tunes, some of the songs that ended up on Fun and Games. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome and great. And then he would come in with some that I wasn't as thrilled with, which created tensions. And I would come in with some that he wasn't thrilled with. The other guys weren't thrilled with. So there's always that dynamic. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and then Doug coming in with tunes. So it's a great question, but kind of a mixed bag. When they came in with a song that I subjectively liked, then it was awesome. And when they came in with a song that I subjectively wasn't thrilled with, then it wasn't pleasant to say, thanks, but I'm just not hearing it. So it created, tension. So that is, I guess, the best way I can answer that question. But no, it was a relief to have those guys contributing.
Yeah.
It was certainly better to get something other than whatever nonsense I was throwing out there. So, yeah.
Yeah, similarly with songs that have like co-songwriting credits between like you and Doug, something like Fun and Games, was it like an early Lennon-McCartney eye to eye, or was it more like later Lennon-McCartney where you'd have most of the song and then he'd finish it up sort of thing?
The latter. It was the latter. I remember giving Doug songwriting credit on Fun and Games. I don't even remember what his contribution to the song was. I just thought that it would probably be a nice thing to do to include him on that. By the same token, he might have given me some songwriting credit on one of his tunes that I had done nothing on. I think it was just an acknowledgement that, I can come up with these tunes, and so what, without someone to sing them the way that Doug was singing them, then it doesn't get you but so far. So it was that more than anything. Yeah, I think I pretty much wrote Fun and Games. Maybe I'm taking credit that I don't deserve, but I think it was the latter. It was more like late Beatles, where there wasn't a whole lot of collaborating going on, at least before the band arrangement started happening. And Doug wasn't involved in those because, he wasn't contributing an instrument. Yeah, right. He was just singing what he was asked to sing.
Recorded in 1993 at Atlanta radio station WNNX and released as a B-side to the New Boy single. Here's a live acoustic rendition of Fun and Games.
Let me tear down into your heart. Let me take a seat and stay a while. Let me tear down into your heart. Fun and games. Let me steal a glimpse from your eyes. I'll pin it up and stare a while. Let me steal a glimpse from your eyes. Fun and games. Let me keep it for myself a while. Let me have a half of your whole. Fun and games. Let me take the words from your mouth, swallow them and speak a while. Let me take the breath from your mouth. Fun and, well, I said, didn't I offer less and I lost? Hey, hey, I said, hey, hey. To find it at all and hey, right. Look, don't make me size it up all and hey. Let me tear down into your heart. Let me take a seat and stay a while. Let me tear down into your heart. Fun and games. Let me steal a glimpse from your eyes. I'll pin it up and stare a while. Steal a glimpse from your eyes. Fun and games. Well, I said, didn't I offer less and I lost? Hey, hey, I said, hey, hey. Didn't I mean to find it at all? And hey, right. Look, don't make me size it up all and hey.
I'm guessing that how my parents heard you for the first time was my dad was a pretty religious viewer of 120 Minutes. And you started having some videos that, like Stone Cold Yesterday, got some pretty buzzbin. Was that what they called it? Buzzbin song?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, that was a great show. So yeah, we did early on. I mean, MTV in the early days, they were playing some of our early videos, ones that we were making for hundreds of dollars, or, it changed very quickly. But we did happen to have been making some of these initial videos in the early days of MTV. And then 120 Minutes, they championed us in some of the early videos. I guess they were desperate for material. So they did show some of that stuff.
Yeah, filming those videos, was that an enjoyable experience, being on a music video set?
Well, yeah. Oh, my word, though. I'm going to have a hard time talking about this because I can't even watch some of those, at least myself, because I may be a little overly dramatic. I finally realized that toning things down a little bit was more effective than the grand gesture, which I was going for. And it's so embarrassing. But that's where my mind was at, I guess, at that point.
There are certainly more embarrassing music videos in the MTV archives.
I think we are in running with some of the more embarrassing ones. But yeah, it was heady stuff. I was astounded that film crews were showing up. There we were lip syncing and pretending like we were playing, and the whole 9 yards.
By the time of the Ring album, you were a pretty successful alternative rock band in America, but on the Ring album, you had the song 7475, which sort of blew you up continentally. How did that song sort of catch on in Germany and Europe and all of those places?
I mean, I wrote the song in 1991. We went up to Woodstock, New York with Lou Giordano in March of 1993. He had been the sound man for Husker Du and had produced early Goo Goo Dolls and a lot of other bands. And we went to Dreamland in Woodstock, New York, and made that record in 93. And, it did well at college radio, and it got some commercial airplay in some larger markets. Like we had done well before that in Salt Lake City and Chicago and in a few other cities, DC. But we were not prepared for what happened in 1995. The summer after the record was released, two gentlemen from Intercord Records in Stuttgart, Germany, came to the New Music Seminar in New York City. And they had heard the record and heard the song 7475. Their thinking was that the song might connect in Germany, even though it was this, mid-tempo snoozer, ballad type song. But they approached Steve Gottlieb at the New Music Seminar and asked if they could license the Ring record for release in Germany. I think Steve Gottlieb said, fine. They struck a licensing deal, I think with anticipated sales of, a couple of thousand units. So these fellows from Intercord Records in Stuttgart, their hunch proved to be correct, and the song for some reason did connect, and it happened pretty quickly. It went up the charts by leaps and bounds, and really within a couple of months of first being worked at radio, it was in the top 10 in Germany, and it got to 2 or 3 or maybe even 1, and then kind of spread throughout Western Europe and up into Scandinavia.
Okay.
But there was nothing inevitable about that song. So many great songs. I mean, so I still to this day, we look at one, we can't fathom really why the song did what it did. And I guess it still gets airplay, but it did strike some sort of nerve and connected. So we, for the first time, were seeing commercial airplay unlike anything we'd ever seen. Granted, it was all overseas, but it was crazy. And an old friend, Mark Pellington, made a video for the song, which played up his take on 7475 was that it was referring to the years 74-75. And so he played up that aspect, which I did not think was a great idea, but thankfully no one listened to me. And the video turned out it is what it is, and had a lot to do with the success of the song because it was getting a lot of airplay at MTV Europe in 1995. So it all kind of fed on itself.
Recorded in the Netherlands in the summer of 1995 for the show 2 Meter Sessions, here's a live acoustic version of 74-75.
Got no reason for coming to me in the rain, running down. There's no reason. there's no reason. When I look on in your eyes, find that I'll define. When I look on your eyes, and I'll do better. 'Cause I was the one who let you know I was your sorry ever after. 74, 75. You're giving me more and I'll define. 'Cause you're really only after 74, 75. I was the one who let you know you're sorry ever after 74, 75. You're giving me more and I'll define. 'Cause you're really only after 74, 75.
And you guys did a whole bunch of touring just around Europe to support it.
We did, yeah. I mean, we made something like 8 trips within that 1 year to Europe. Initially to Germany for obvious reasons, and then it spread into Scandinavia. So we would make a trek to Scandinavia, and then it landed in Britain and Ireland eventually. And so there we were, and we got as far east as Budapest. I guess Dublin was as far west as we got, but got down as far as Rome. So those were sort of the parameters.
Okay. That sounds very exciting, but also just kind of overwhelming, just so many new places.
It was overwhelming, and yeah, it was exciting. And, just being in Europe and seeing places that you would not otherwise have seen.
Right.
And playing for crowds that are very different than the crowds you're accustomed to playing in the States. Yeah, it was exciting and a little weird.
Yeah, you opened for Def Leppard a little bit in that jaunt, right?
There was a show in a piazza in Rome. A radio station was celebrating its, say, 20th birthday. And so there were bands playing all day long. And we happened to be one of those bands because 74, 75 was top 10 in Italy at that point.
Okay.
And we walked off stage, and the guys in Def Leppard, we knew they were playing after us. We talked to them for a while, and they were just perfect gentlemen and took the time to talk with us. No names from North Carolina, and then walk on stage and start with, pour some sugar on me or something like that. So it was amazing. Yeah, that did happen. That was a thing, opening for Def Leppard.
Very cool.
Well, we opened for Fleetwood Mac at one of those shows in Switzerland.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Now, this was in that era. Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham were not in the band.
Okay. It's like Billy Burnett.
But Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, those guys, the same story. We had done playing and standing outside, and you're looking at, you're in Switzerland, and those guys took the time to talk to us. And so we all, just did this number and, thanked them for everything that they had meant for music. And so they were perfectly gracious. But yeah, there were a few bands that we got to play with in Europe. Pretty amazing. We played a few shows with America, Mike and the Mechanics, a lot of bands that I'm probably forgetting at this point. But
the next album, or the next couple albums, were not quite as successful. Weird Food and Devastation and Still Life.
Yeah, there's a good reason they weren't quite as successful. They weren't quite as good. So, yeah, I can't quite explain what was going through my mind primarily. We were purposefully trying to distance ourselves to show that we weren't, one trick pony, that we could do stuff that was a little farther afield than what we had done before. Mm-hmm. So we sort of went out of our way to come up with something that we thought was less Connells-y. And that was Weird Food. Still Life, we were trying to get back to the old formula, but just the songwriting wasn't there. And the performances were not there either. I mean, there's still a few songs that I like on Weird Food and Still Life.
Yeah.
And Doug makes that point. Doug says he doesn't think of things in terms of albums. He thinks, songs.
Right.
And even on those records, there are songs that he likes a lot. Now, I would agree with that. But yeah, if you consider record by record, I'm not quite as fond of those two as some of the others.
Here's a performance of one of the standout tracks from Still Life. recorded live at the legendary Sun Studios in Memphis in 1998, called The Leper.
Words, chatter words, and it all amounts to nothing. Sounds, it just sounds, it just sounds a little funny. Yeah, it's true, I was the leper. Yeah, it's true, I was the lad. Yeah, it's true, I was the better and the bad. Reading for the part of someone with a heart poised and crystal power. Standing on the brink, trying not to drink. I haven't even showered, but I'm going, yeah I'm going, yeah I'm going to. Yeah, it's true, I was the leper. Yeah, it's true, I was the lad. Yeah, it's true, I was the better and the bad. And the world keeps settling in my way, damn it all, damn it all. And the world keeps settling in my way, damn it all, damn it all. Christ, what a life, and the most of it forgotten. Bliss, and with this, and the rest is pretty rotten. Yeah, it's true, I was the leper. Yeah, it's true, I was the lad. Yeah, it's true, I was the better and the bad. Yeah, it's true, I was the leper. Yeah, it's true, I was the lad. Well, it's true, I was the better and I'm mad. Yes, I'm mad. Well, I'm mad.
Did you leave TVT? Did TVT ask you to leave?
TVT asked us to leave. Yeah, we were we thought we were well on our way to making a next record. So we had demoed a bunch of songs in our practice space, and we ended up releasing those songs as Old School Dropouts, which was never available for digital distribution until I guess recently. I mean, we just pressed up a couple of thousand CDs, and some of those sold. But really, we were thinking, we'll never make another record. We've demoed these songs. Let's just throw them out there, for posterity's sake. In hindsight, probably would have been prudent to hang on to those for recording in a proper studio. But we just did not think we would ever get back into a proper studio. TVT had always put us in the studio and paid for us to go into the studio and paid for us to live in Wales or in Woodstock, New York, or Boston, Massachusetts for a few weeks while the record was being made. So we did not see any possibility that would ever happen again. So we just thought, throw it out there. And that was Old School Dropouts. And we pilfered some of those songs for this new record, because we liked the songs and we thought if they were given proper treatment in a quote unquote real studio, that might be a good thing.
When the recording output stops, the band never really breaks up. You're still sort of playing a couple shows a year? Yeah, more like half a dozen to a dozen shows a year on average, I would say. But, by this point, children and day jobs loom a lot larger than playing out. But yeah, we never completely hung it up. And all during the course of these 20 years, I would find time to sit down with an acoustic guitar and try to come up with a new tune. That never stopped either. About the summer of 2016, we looked around and realized that there were, 11 or 12 songs, 8 songs with 3 from Old School Dropouts that might altogether make a record. Okay. So it was just amassing songs throughout that time.
Yeah, critical mass, I think I've said before. Yeah, we'd reached critical mass. Yeah.
I was so happy when it came out a week ago, realizing there's no filler on it. It's so great that you've been gone for 20 years, and it's clear that you wanted to make an impression when you came back.
Yeah, we did. That's part of the reason we did get back, because notwithstanding that there are songs, like I mentioned before with Old School and Still Life, that I liked, start to finish, didn't feel as good, and thought that we might still have it in us to do a better job. So yeah, it was a slog, but I'm so glad for having done it, because I do feel better, about this record. I mean, in some ways I like it as well as some of the earlier stuff.
And it seems to me that there's more of a personal element to a lot of the songs. There are songs about your kids and about your wife and where you live. It seems like you're expressing something that means something to you, and that comes across.
I really appreciate your take on that. It is a more personal record, and I appreciate your characterization, your assessment of that. So that's awesome. Thank you.
One thing that is sort of different about the album is I don't think there have been on previous albums a lot of explicitly political statements. And there are a couple of tracks, particularly the title track, but also it sort of leaks into Stars a bit, and really great sort of the weirdness of being alive in 2016 through 2020.
Yeah, I've found the last life since November 2016. Those 4 years that our last president was in I probably should shut up, but yeah, I woke up horrified every day about what might happen during the course of that day. I'm not going to apologize for, what I might say, but that's reflected in some of those songs for sure. Not just, who happened to have been in the White House or not, but just the divide in this country now, and, where things stand with race relations, and thinking naively that maybe we were progressing. And I think we still are in fits and starts, kind of the way we made the last record. But those 4 years were pretty scary for me.
Agreed. I think that sort of having that in the album, just sort of the look out at the world and how bleak and almost dystopian that is, and having songs that are closer to home and more heartfelt and about the good things, it sort of makes for this effective push and pull on the album.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, When It's Over, Tell Me from Stars is like, oh my God, please wake me up when and if this finally ends,
Yeah. From Stedman's Wake, the band's 9th album, this is Stars.
When your stars collide and the fates don't seem to favor, everything you've tried is crap. I'm not surprised, my own star's been fading lately, tumbling down to land in my lap. When it's over, tell me. When it's over, tell me. When it's over, tell me. If you want advice and you're seeking some suggestion, you think that it's mine to give. Guess again, I'm all out of inspiration. I'm just trying to find a place to fit. When it's over, tell me. When it's over, tell me. When it's over, tell me.
without saying that, global pandemic also kind of factors into someone's mindset, even though a lot of the idea for these songs were well before that ever happened.
Yeah.
But as it happens, songs that might not make sense when you're first starting to write them, suddenly life kind of cooperates and makes the song seems like there was some thought. So, I'm not very eloquent in talking about songs. Last night, my 16-year-old asked my wife what New Boy from Ring was about. He was on the phone. He is off at a boarding school. And so I said, Catherine, can you tell Hardy, will he be satisfied if I tell him I don't know what it's about? Which is true of so many. So, I don't know what New Boy's about. Maybe at one point in my life I did. So there's an element of that. But no, I think with a lot of songs on this record, I did have more of an idea of what I wanted the song to be about, certainly with Stedman's Wake.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't spell things out explicitly, and you can tie it to Charlottesville as a current event, but it seems more metaphorical and oblique.
Again, your observations are spot on. Because I'm not a good enough songwriter to attempt, what Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan, or even though Dylan could get pretty oblique at times, but,
sure,
but
yeah.
I could never do what songwriters of that ilk can do. So, yeah, I had to be a little more obscure and metaphorical. Is that what you said?
I think so. Something like
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I like that.
I did want to ask about some of the new members who are on this album for the first time. You've got Rob Ladd on drums and Mike Ayers on guitar.
Yeah.
Is Mike Ayers the same Mike Ayers who gets a songwriting credit on Sal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he and George Huntley were roommates for years. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that he was just someone that was in the band's orbit for a while. I
think he might have come up with the dun 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 that single note part that sort of defines this. Yeah, that's the same Mike Ayers.
Okay.
Again, an old friend, and he's been with us. When George left, Mike stepped in, and this would have been early 2000s or late 1990s. And Rob came out of Chapel Hill with a band called the Pressure Boys when these guys were still in high school. Mm-hmm. About the time that we were getting started, even before. And he ended up in Los Angeles, doing session work some and playing with anyone that he could play with. He played on 2 of the songs on Alanis Morissette's, is it Jagged Little
Pill?
Yeah, which those apparently were just like demo songs that sold 15 million copies. And he was Don Henley's drummer when Henley went on tour for 3 years.
Okay.
He was drumming for the drummer for the Eagles. So Rob's a good drummer.
Yeah, for sure.
And Mike's a good guitar player. And they are slumming it to play with us for sure. But it's awesome to have them in the lineup. And thank you for asking about them.
It doesn't seem like they're out of place. It seems like, it's still a band sounding record.
Well, thanks. Yeah. When we play live and we're playing the older stuff, Mike is being true to what George came up with. Mm-hmm. And George's single note parts I just think it's so great what he was doing.
Yeah.
And so Peel and George just had come to a time in their lives when they didn't think it made sense to stay in the band. So it was by no means a matter of us showing them the door. They just were like, guys, it's been fun, but we got lives to lead. And so Mike, soon after George left, stepped in. And Rob, it took a little longer before he agreed to play with us. But I didn't think, given his credentials, that he would want to hang with us for long. But thankfully, it's been 7 or 8 years now that he's been playing with us. So yeah, it's great. These guys are great.
And that's all the time we have for this week's episode. I'd like to thank Mike Connell for being so generous with his time, and to Justin for setting the interview up. The band's new album, Stedman's Wake, is available now any place good music is sold or streamed. And if you'd like more information about the band, including their forthcoming tour dates, visit theconnells.com. And be sure to tune in again next week, when our topic will be unsongs. This is Charlie, signing off.